Get ready.
Welcome back to another video where today we're going to investigate the story behind Disneyland Paris being considered an initial failure and how the park turned things around. Before we get into the video, we would ask you to sub to the channel if you haven't already and smash the like button if you enjoy the content. With that being said, let's jump into the video. Disneyland Paris is the most successful theme park resort in Europe by a long shot. Before 2019, the park was seeing up to 10 million people visit per year. For context, Europa Park in Germany is the second most visited and saw about 6 million visitors per year in the same time period. If you're a Europa Park fan, make sure to head over to our channel after watching this video for some Europa Park specific content. Coming up to 30 years in operation, Disneyland Paris has gone from strength to strength over time, and this success has seen the opening of Walt Disney Studios Park as well as various other expansions. But regardless of how successful the resort is today, things weren't always so rosy. And at one time, Disneyland Paris was considered to be the Walt Disney Company's biggest failure. In this video, we uncover the reasons why, so sit back and get ready. The birth of Euro Disney. The success of Disneyland in California gave Disney the confidence that theme parks would be a good source of growth for the company. Of course, looking at things from today's perspective, they were absolutely right. However, even with the success of Disneyland in California, Disney had no evidence to back up that the same park model would work in different parts of the world. With that being said, if Walt Disney had based things on data and existing knowledge, then we probably wouldn't have seen many of the amazing projects and entertainment we know and love today. It's thought that plans for a Disneyland based in Europe were being drawn up as early as 1966. With that, you might be thinking, what happened? The original Euro Disney didn't open until 1992. Meaning the timeline from conception to construction was over 25 years. Well, these things take time, and on top of that, Euro Disney wasn't the only project that Disney was working on at the time. The construction of Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom was well underway at the same time, and there were also plans to build a second park in the resort, as well as the opportunity to construct an Asian-based Disneyland. In the years to come, these parks will be known as Epcot and Tokyo Disneyland respectively. On another note, building a theme park is a very expensive piece of business, so it's inherently important that you get it right. One of the most important factors of a theme park's success is its location, and there are a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, accessibility. If you build a theme park in a location that's difficult to get to, then you will naturally see a lower attendance even if you have top-tier attractions in the park. Climate is also very important. If you build a park in a climate that some guests may not be used to, then it could really affect the experience. With all this being taken into consideration, Disney did their due diligence when deciding on where the perfect location would be for the first Euro Disney park. For a brief period, it looked like Spain might have taken the accolade. However, the land that was being proposed for the site eventually fell through. After this, Disney CEO at the time Michael Eisner instead turned his attention to a small rural town called Marne-la-Vallée, just outside of Paris. Disney estimated that the site would be accessible by only a 4-hour drive to 68 million people across Europe, and a 2-hour flight for a further 300 million people. This, coupled with a suitable climate for most people, swayed the decision, and Disney put pen to paper in 1985, with the final contract being signed in 1987. Construction started shortly after this, and Euro Disney was officially born. The reason it initially failed. So, with so much planning involved and the backing of one of the biggest brands in the world, why on earth was Euro Disney considered a failure? Well, the main reason behind this is that Disney totally overestimated how many guests would attend the park on both a daily, monthly and annual basis. They also underestimated how much cash each person would spend when inside the park. We'll go into this in a little bit more detail later on in the video, but for now, all we'll say is we're not sure if the overestimation of how the park would perform was arrogance or just unfortunate. Nevertheless, it put Disney in a very uncomfortable financial position that took them years to get out of. We talked earlier about how Disney spent years meticulously doing their due diligence when deciding on where Euro Disney would be based. However, one thing they did not take into account or choose to pay attention to was the cultural impact, as well as the reaction an American-built park might have on the current economic state of Europe as a whole. For viewers who have never visited France, you might be unaware of how important culture and traditions are in this country. As a result of Euro Disney being announced, there were mass protests across France, as its citizens feared the park would have an overall negative effect on the country, while attracting some unwanted guests. This, coupled with the ongoing European recession, meant that the opening of the park was never going to be as smooth as other parks had been. In fact, Euro Disney's opening day could only be described as a complete disaster. Keeping in the theme of overestimation, Disney forecast an attendance of around 50,000 guests. The reality was, only about half this number showed up. Initially, Disney put this down to the fact that the French government had actually warned people to avoid the park on opening day. Their basis for this was a survey which suggested that more than 500,000 people in a total of 90,000 cars were expected to travel. Obviously, this would have caused huge congestion, and thus many people might have chosen to avoid this. The main railway line connecting the centre of Paris to the park was also on strike at the time, which really did make the park inaccessible to a lot of people. With that being said, even if the disappointing opening day attendance could have been attributed to this, the following days, months and years could unfortunately not. The turnaround. As we mentioned earlier, for the first few years of Euro Disney's existence, Europe was going through a recession. Many people just did not have the disposable income needed to visit a theme park. On top of this, Disney had originally forecast that the average person would end up spending $33 in the park on any given day. However, initial data after the first year showed that guests were spending 12% less than this. Due to these miscalculations, Disney spent the first few years trying to manage its debt and avoid bankruptcy. In 1994, the company eventually struck a deal with the banks to delay interest payments for a couple of years. This situation was also helped further by Disney selling part of the company's stake to an investor. Once everything was said and done, Euro Disney was finally ready to head in the right direction. The turnaround really started in 1995 when Euro Disney officially changed its name to Disneyland Paris, which in a way felt like a fresh start for the park and its guests. Along with the name change, the park also opened a new attraction by the name of Space Mountain. Anyone who knows Disney knows Space Mountain is one of the most iconic attractions across the globe, and the opening of this attraction was accompanied by a huge opening ceremony that featured the likes of A-list celebrities such as Elton John. The publicity, along with the economic situation in Europe steadily improving, saw attendances to the park start to rise. The park's attendance had risen by 21% in 1 year, which also coincided with the park posting its first ever profit. Disneyland Paris had finally started to show the potential everyone believed it had upon opening, and this was only the beginning. In the years that followed, Disneyland Paris continued to steadily grow, with the help of a variety of creative marketing campaigns focused on guest experience and the magic or the feeling the park could represent. The year 2002 saw the park go through another name change, becoming Disneyland Resort Paris as opposed to Disneyland Paris. The main reason for this was the park and resort had just opened its anticipated second gate, Walt Disney Studios Park. It had been originally planned that Disneyland Paris would open a second gate called Disney MGM Studios Europe in 1995, but as we've mentioned, due to the park's incurred debt at the time, this had to be pushed back. In 2009, they again changed their name, this time reverting back to the original Disneyland Paris. Since then, Disneyland Paris has gone from strength to strength, and on its 20th anniversary in 2012, an analysis showed it had generated a whopping €37 billion for the French economy since its opening. In our opinion, this is even more impressive due to the park's major financial struggles in the early years. To sum up, Disneyland Paris started off as a great idea that in hindsight was maybe executed poorly. However, coming up to its 30th anniversary, the park is now the most attended theme park in Europe. This truly is a case study for both what to look out for when opening a park in a foreign country, as well as how you can turn a bad situation into a good one. Personally, we're very excited to see what's in store for this resort in the future. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our defunct Disneyland Paris attractions video on screen now. Let us know in the comments below where you think Disneyland Paris ranks out of all the Disney parks, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already.